Okay, let's get a check now of the latest business news, and I'm joined by our business editor, Kate Moody. Hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Now, the US and the UK have announced a détente in what's been a long-running trade spat. What's the latest?
Well, this is the Airbus-Boeing subsidy case, which has seen transatlantic tariffs imposed in both directions. The US has now temporarily lifted levies on certain imports from the UK. London already did so back in January, post-Brexit. It opens the door to a similar easing of tensions between Washington and the European Union. Tariffs do remain in place on billions of euros worth of goods, but French President Emmanuel Macron, among others, has said he's ready to negotiate a deal. Luke Trego reports.
A 4-month suspension to trade tariffs between the United States and the United Kingdom in an effort to de-escalate a 16-year ongoing spat over unfair state subsidies to aircraft giants Airbus and Boeing.
This will allow time to focus on negotiating a balanced settlement to the disputes. It will benefit a wide range of industries on both sides of the Atlantic and allow for focused settlement negotiations to ensure that our aerospace industries can finally see a resolution and focus on COVID recovery and other shared goals.
The move from Washington came after London unilaterally dropped its own tariffs in January, diverging from the European Union's line on the matter following its departure from the bloc. Donald Trump imposed levies on 6.2 billion euros of European goods in 2019 as the EU retaliated, sparking fears of a trade war and fierce criticism from the sector's hit, particularly including Scotch whisky and other US-bound exports. Before the tariffs went into effect, the US market for Scotch had been valued at over 1.2 billion euros. By the end of 2020, it had fallen by nearly a third. While both Airbus and Boeing welcomed the development and what each referred to as a move necessary to create a level playing field, there'll need to be further progress in the months ahead, with Washington reserving the right to reimpose tariffs at any point. The EU, in the meantime, still remains at loggerheads with the US, with levies still in place on both sides.
Separately, Airbus has said it will avoid forced layoffs in France, Germany and the UK. In the midst of the pandemic last year, the European aviation giant said it was planning to cut 15,000 jobs worldwide. The food delivery platform Deliveroo has announced plans to list its shares in London. It's welcome news for the UK as the British finance industry adapts to the post-Brexit era. Deliveroo is valued at around 5.8 billion euros. Amazon bought a stake in it last year, and it sets the stage for one of the most highly anticipated initial public offerings of the year so far. That brings us to a look at the day's trading action. A relatively muted session for the major European indices saw slight gains in Paris and Milan, losses in London and Frankfurt. New data showing a nearly 6% drop in retail spending in the Eurozone in the month of January. Choppy trade on Wall Street has seen stocks turning sharply downwards in the last hour or so. The Dow Jones plunging 600 points, the Nasdaq down nearly 3% there. This as the Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell said that taking steps towards reopening the U.S. economy could lead to a temporary jump in inflation. A very swift reaction from investors there. Meanwhile, oil prices have jumped as much as 5% as OPEC and its allies suggested they will be keeping many of their production curbs in place for the foreseeable future. US WTI trading at about $63.95 per barrel. International Brent crude at $66.87 there. They have hit their highest prices in over a year. The oil cartel slashed its output last year as demand for oil plunged and prices followed suit. At a meeting in Vienna, the group said Kazakhstan and non-member Russia would be allowed to pump a small amount more in the months to come. De facto leader Saudi Arabia said it would be voluntarily extending its own cut of 1 million fewer barrels per day into April before weighing when to gradually phase out those limits. The number of Americans claiming unemployment benefits rose slightly last week. The Labor Department reported 745,000 new applications compared to a revised 736,000 the previous week. It has been nearly a year since the pandemic sparked an all-time high of nearly 7 million claims in a single week. But the weekly figures do remain elevated by historical standards, a sign of the ongoing weakness of the U.S. labor market. Economists expect modest gains to be reported in the February employment data when it is released on Friday. But Tom, a lot of people on these emergency benefits are going to see those running out midway through this month if Congress doesn't act soon.
Okay, well, let's hope they do. Thank you very much indeed. Our business editor, Kate Moody. Thank you.